So I want to welcome to our second half of the panel, Terry Schneider and A.C. Tharrington. This is Terry and A.C.'s over there next to Rosemary. And then also we have Adrian Brown and Keith Flint. So they will also tell their stories, and I think we'll start this end this time. Okay, is that all right? I don't think we pre-planned how we're going to go.
Hello, again, my name is Keith, and I too am not a very political person. I go to work, I pay my taxes, I follow the law. I'm a lifelong North Carolinian, which isn't the most common thing in this area. But I'm committed to my state and where I'm from. There's a big sense of pride of where my family is from, and I want to stay here. This is home. I don't want to have to leave because I feel like I'm not wanted or I'm not valued. I've been in education, been a teacher or supporting teachers for 17 years, and I'd like to continue to do that. I'd also like to be able to offer the benefits and other things as a state employee to my partner Adrian, just as my father did and my mother did with each other. I just feel like it's a very basic right. And again, I feel like I'm getting political here, and I really am not that kind of person. But I think it's important for us to support each other as well as our family continues to develop. I don't know what to say. I want to continue my life like I've lived here. I want the same kind of equality that everybody else has that may sometimes be taken for granted, and all of a sudden we're faced with this idea of, oh no, like somebody's questioning this, they might take things away. We had similar legal documents drawn up too, and the thought that those things may not be valid, or the fact that we had to take that extra step to protect ourselves. It's sort of unfortunate, but we understood that and we played along. But now it's like something else is happening, something else is in the air, and it's a little disconcerting.
Hey everybody, my name is Adrian Brown, I'm Keith's partner, and you know, the thing that comes to mind for me is just how unsexy it is to start your relationship off. We've been together for 6 years, whereas a lot of people can be talking about marriage, or you know, how they're going to design their relationship. You know, are they going to live together and then get married, whatever. For us, it was, you know, we realized we wanted to be together, and then we had to start thinking about things like durable powers of attorney and medical powers of attorney, and it was like we were like putting this contract together because, you know, it kind of, like I said, it took kind of the romance out of it. That's the word I'm looking for. Sorry. So there's just so much, you know, like Keith was just saying, you know, when I would say neither one of us is really particularly political, but when, you know, we heard about this amendment and saw it was getting traction, we began to get a little nervous about all those documents that we put in place that we spent really good money on, very much like you back there, what you were saying earlier. And one of the things that didn't dawn on me until recently was not everybody has the luxury, just like you said, to be able to afford those sorts of things. And so it just creates an inequity in our society that I just think is so unfair. So let's see, I put some notes here together for me. You know, one of the things that really bothers me is just how poorly written the legislation is. It's really confusing. You know, it's a scary thing to try to take away rights from a particular group. And because of how poorly it's written, a lot of people just don't understand it, and they're going to be voting. Some folks might vote for it and not even be aware of what they're doing. So, and I think this idea of making it about gay marriage is is also confusing to people, because that's really not the issue. You know, I think that's kind of a scapegoat to scare people. There's already laws in place that define marriage between a man and a woman, and clearly we all know that. We knew that. That's why we did what we did. So that kind of worries me. In terms of what I do professionally, you know, what I think a lot of people don't think about is the impact on our community from an economic development standpoint. So, you know, talent is a big deal, and you know, RTP is right here. You know, we attract amazing talent to our community and to this region of which we're a part of. And I worry that, you know, a lot of the companies that choose to be here and are considering coming here would be really concerned that an important component of their talent and workforce wouldn't be treated respectfully, or that they wouldn't be accepted here. And so they might begin to look elsewhere. And we might not think about that as any big deal, maybe, but you know, I think it's a big deal. You know, that's an economic engine for us when these companies come here and folks bring their money here and they buy things, and our community gets better. So that really concerns me. I'm not sure I can say much else that, you know, people haven't already talked about. Oh, okay, Keith's pointing out the fact that I was, you know, one of the things we talked about is our family as it's growing. So we have a foster child right now that we hope to adopt someday. You know, we don't know how this legislation could impact our family. And that's pretty scary. And I know there are a lot of other folks that are in the same position. You know, Keith talked about health benefits, but even health benefits for her. You know, we've talked about moving forward that, you know, should we be able to adopt her permanently, you know, which one of us will be able to put her on their health benefits? And, you know, it's something that a lot of folks don't have to go through, but that we have to think about that, and it would be great if there wasn't legislation that could make that even harder for us. So I thank you all for being here, for one thing, and being interested in this topic, because the more people that you all tell about this, the better, I think, for all of us and for our state. So.
Good evening. My name is Terry Schneider, and this is my domestic partner, A.C. Therrington. Our story is a little different. Different to the point that without power of medical that I have for him, which was provided by Duke University, because he's an HIV patient, and they, back in 1998, 99, drew up this contract, and it was at the hospital, recorded, and they had it on file. So anytime something happened, there was never any question. In 2007, it wasn't HIV related. He's doing quite well there. He got a brain infection, and he went comatose. And I took him in, and being they already knew that they knew who I was. There was no question, and I stood with him. And I always kept his family, who lived in Franklin County, always informed of anything that ever happened. And so I called them and told them about it, what was happening. And that was on the 5th of July, 2007. That weekend, he stepped in intensive therapy to get rid of the infection. Sunday, they gave up and said, let's go ahead and do last rites on him. And his family did come down. And one of his brothers called him a faggot and said, we're going to go to hell. The reason I'm going to go through this a little bit is to explain why it's so important. If this amendment was in effect at that time, I wouldn't wouldn't be able to do anything, just drop him off in the hospital and say goodbye. His family came down. We did the last rites. It was Sunday. Monday, when I called the hospital to see how, because they were going to put him in hospice and let him die. And they said he was trying to get out of bed. There was a little divine intervention here. Not just from me, but from a lot of people. Because we own the store in Hillsborough, computer. And so it was Monday afternoon, I went up there around 3:30 in the afternoon, saw him, he was trying to have bed, so I go over with his doctor and said, I think we should treat him like a stroke victim. She agreed, and they sent him back up to ICU, or down to ICU at UNC. And therapy started, okay. So his family, I let his family know what was happening, that actually he's not dead yet. And so they came back, and we discussed the therapy, and 4 female neurologist doctors said they would like to take the case, and they think they could maybe bring him out of it. And so we discussed it, and I had the power of attorney, or medical power of attorney. And I said, yes, we do this for 2 weeks and see what happens, because his statement to me always was no long-term, no pumps or anything like that. So family decided otherwise. And I said, no, we'll discuss it in 2 weeks, we'll see. But they decided otherwise, and it got into a very heated, almost fist fight over. But the hospital, UNC, stood behind me and said, I had power of attorney. It's my decision. And I came and went anytime I needed to, or I would go there every night. And about 2 weeks and a half, he started pulling out of it. So the main emphasis here is that this amendment was in effect at that time, or if it goes in effect now, I would lose all power of attorney. And his family lives in Franklin County, and they're going to come running down to take care of him now. So that's why it's so important. And as for being political, well, I'm political when I'm forced into it. I actually come from Anita Bryant. I was one of the 15 people who caused that issue. And I lived in Miami then. Thank you. I don't know if people say anything or not. He so happy he was talking.
My name is Jason Thurman. I had stroke and that's why I can't tell.
Last May, Nancy and I got married here at Durham. And I was having dinner a couple of nights. I was having dinner a couple of nights before with a friend, I thought. The techno klutz of the family. And, you know, I told her that we were going to get married and asked if she would like to come. It wasn't more than a couple of nights, a couple of weeks, several weeks. She looked at me, she said, why do you people have to get married anyway? Wow. I haven't spoken to her since then, I have to say. And I tried to explain, which obviously didn't make any difference to her. But her attitude kind of reminds me of what I read when I was researching this amendment, that the cause, the thoughts of the legislators who sponsored it and passed it was, those people are going to come with their marriages from New York. We can't deal with their marriages. Why not? why do you people have to get married anyway? Well, let me tell you. I knew from the time I was about 7 that I wasn't made right. I didn't get it. You know, the girls were like primping, and they were all a twitter of boys, and of course kept getting more and more common. And I just didn't get it. Like, what is going on? And then I realized I didn't like playing the same things they did, and I didn't like playing with them. But I loved playing boy stuff. By the time I was 10, I was convinced God had made me wrong. I was supposed to be a boy. And I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. I knew I didn't want to get married. I lived in a very conservative state. I grew up in Rhode Island. It's still 90% Catholic. So there was no, I think it's maybe 85 now. I finally went back to Rhode Island a couple of years ago, went to the Sheraton Hotel, went to the gift shop, and all the stuff in there was holy cards and rosaries. Yeah. You go to the Sheraton Hotel in Rhode Island. There was no, nobody mentioned, there was no evidence of, especially for women, being gay. So I mean, what conclusion was I going to draw? So I didn't want to get married. What was I going to do in life? I went in the convent. They let me stay for 3 years, and the evening before final vows, the novice mistress called me and she said, "You don't belong here. You're not making your first vows." It was first vows. And they kicked me out with no warning. And that took me a long time to get over. So then what was I going to do with my life? I didn't want to live by myself. I didn't want to get married. I finally decided that the only thing I could do and keep my sanity was to try being married. And in graduate school, I met a guy that my thought was, he wouldn't be so bad. Maybe I could make it with him. I think he kind of thought the same way about me. We got married for all the wrong reasons. We had a daughter. We had a family. We looked like the ideal couple. But the juice just wasn't there. I mean, and when we went out as a couple with other couples, I was isolated. Because I always ended up finding myself in after dinner, all the women go in the kitchen, and all the men stay in the living room, and that's where I always found myself. And it was after the fact, I'd always realize, oh, the women have all gone to the kitchen. I didn't mean to do it this way. I couldn't figure out how to dress right. I just couldn't do it. It just never worked. But I still didn't know what my problem was. I just knew I was all wrong. I didn't belong in the world. Finally, we stayed married for 33 years because we were Catholic. Until I got to the point where I couldn't take it anymore, and I planned to commit suicide in the garage, sealing the doors and the tailpipe of the car. And a friend of mine in California persuaded me to come to California instead and think about it. And so instead of, after the last day of school, I was a college professor, instead of carrying out my plan for suicide, I put my computer and my books and some underwear in the car and drove to California. Now, it didn't take more than about 3 days. And there were all these lesbian couples, these women, and they were together. And it was like light bulbs. Oh my God. That explains my whole life. I am not kidding. And so then, of course, I had to tell my husband. And, his response was, okay, I'm divorcing you. And that was the end of the marriage. It was probably a lifesaver for both of us because he had become alcoholic and abusive. It was, a really miserable, awful situation. I met a woman and married her. And we had 10 wonderful years together. After about 6 years, I told her, I now know what it really means to be married. Because we were able to build a real relationship, and that was the first time in my life. And I was in my early 60s. And that led me to be able to figure out for the first time in my life, what did I really want to do with my life? What profession did I want? And I had been so depressed that, I ended up being a teacher because I stayed in school until I got a degree and they kicked me out. What do you do after a doctorate? You teach. So I taught for a long time. And when I knew myself, I realized I wanted to be a healthcare practitioner. Now, in your middle 50s, it's kind of late to go to medical school. But I was able to, since I was in California, I was able to go to an alternative medical profession, became a classical homeopath, which I'm still doing. Ellen died in 2008. We had tried to get married because, I don't know, it was just something that we wanted to be normal people. We were a committed couple. We got married in Portland, Oregon, when they opened marriage in 2004 to same-sex couples. 8 months later, the Supreme Court of Oregon annulled 8,000 same-sex marriages through no fault and no desire of the parties involved. We were unmarried. Massachusetts, after we moved here because my daughter is here with my grandchildren. And it has been wonderful to be a part of their lives. Massachusetts opened same-sex marriage to people not living in Massachusetts in August actually, of 2008. And in September, we went to Massachusetts and we got married on the shore of a bay where I had grown up by a justice of the peace. We brought oxygen tanks. Ellen died 4 weeks later, but being married made such a difference to both of us. It made us feel like we were accepted, like we were real people. We told our neighbors here in North Carolina that we had gotten married. They had known us before, but they understood our relationship after we got married. So why do we have to get married? Well, just like anybody else. And it's not a lifestyle choice. I was in New York last week talking with community activists, and what people said unanimously was the hope for not passing this, but suppressing this amendment in North Carolina was for many, many straight people to talk about it and to vote against it. And so for everybody here tonight, those are the people that are going to help us vote down this amendment, and talking to as many people as possible is really important.
I think I saved the best to last. I'm Nancy, and a member of Pilgrim. Rosemary forgot to tell you that when we were dating, she, every time we got together, had to tell me how wonderful it was to be married and what marriage meant and why I should think about it. Little did she know that 5 years previously, Ginger had asked me if I was married. I said, "Oh no, I'm a lifelong lesbian." She said, "No to your female partner." So, I grew up in the 50s in Georgia, and went to college at WC, Norton's College of the University of North Carolina, now known as UNCG. And my first experience of love and intimacy was with a woman. And my sophomore year in college, I did not know what it was. I'd never heard about anything about homosexuality or being gay. And I couldn't really face that that's what it was for about 5 years. I ran from it because it was an abomination in the sight of the Lord. That was the world I had grown up in. I too had considered ending my life, and I was so inculcated with the dominant culture that when a psychiatrist offered to help me, he said he couldn't cure me, but he might be able to help me accept myself, I knew he was the spawn of the devil. The spawn of the devil. I ran from that. So my adult life has been spent with a lot of psychotherapy, and starting in the 80s with a lot of pastoral counseling. I would like to say, since there's so many non-political people on this panel, that the personal is political, and that all politics is local. People that know me, I hope see me as more or less of a gentle soul. I'm not in your face. I've never been in your face kind of person about being a lesbian. But I did go through some pretty awful stuff in Georgia with race relations. I went through the integration of the University of North Carolina. I went through the sit-ins at Woolworths. I went through the anti-Vietnam War stuff, the women's rights stuff, and the GLBT of it, at that point, the gay rights stuff. And that was all very political times, very political stuff that I was part of because of who I was, not because I was particularly a political creature. My neighbors in my dorm were African American. My friends in New York were lesbian feminists and other feminists, and went to now stuff. And was very involved with people who were involved in getting the abortion rights passed in New York State. I would sign stuff, I would go, I would help, I would support, but my role has always been supportive. So I don't think it's quite fair to say that you're not political because you're not out in the front rows of it. I mean, I was in the gay band, I was right in the front with my cymbals. That was the most obvious political stuff that I've ever done. What does this amendment mean to my life? I did marry Rosemary. She forgot to tell you we got married legally also in Connecticut in March last year. So we're married legally, we're married in the eyes of the church. Her very conservative Catholic family came to the wedding, got a special dispensation so they could take Protestant communion with us. And I gave one of her sisters the Song of Songs to read. I just couldn't help that. I have to say that in terms of GLBTQ rights, when Don't Ask, Don't Tell was repealed, I was really happy and heartened, and I had more hope than I had in years, because I saw it as the way we in America do our social justice business. After World War II, the military had integrated racially, and within 20 years, we had racial integration became really the way. And I thought, well, Don't Ask, Don't Tell is going to do the same thing. If the military can do this, it's not going to be long before we'll be illegal everywhere. So it was heartbreaking to me to see North Carolina pass this law. Also, I want to point out how many people of us that spoke tonight own their own businesses. Rosemary owns hers, I own mine. Why do we own our own businesses? Because we're not accepted, or our ceilings are limited a lot of times in industry. So I moved my business here in 1993, Because I knew what the Triangle was like, I knew what Piedmont, North Carolina was like, I knew that we would be accepted. My office manager was a gay man. It never occurred to me that we would move back into such repressive times. I know how hateful people can be. They lynched people in my hometown. You know, I've been spit on for being gay. I've had all kinds of things said to me, as probably everyone here has. But this is really going back, this amendment is going back so far. And I guess I would just say that if the amendment passes, it would seal the hate that kills hope. And in my lifetime, we've had so much that's hopeful. Yes, we don't have racial equality. Yes, we don't have women's equality, but we have the opportunity and the hope for it. And I don't know what this is going to do to people who are somehow sexually different. I also don't know how long it's going to take the average bear to realize that human sexuality, straight, gay, or middle of the road, is a variety of experience. Everyone, regardless of your orientation, has a different sexuality. It comes in many flavors, and all of God's children got a place in the choir, as far as I'm concerned.
I would now invite the first panelist to come back up front, if you would, and join this group. We'll make sure we have enough chairs, if you will, for questions. And while they're coming up, I want to just thank all of them for participating.